Hey, contact center, customer experience friends, welcome back to another episode of Contact Center Journeys. I'm super excited to be bringing on my guest, Lorne Wood. Lorne is the founder and managing director of Better Call Center QA. Welcome to the pod, Lorne.
Thank you so very much. It's great to be here.
Absolutely. So, as always, the intent of Contact Center Journey is to inspire the next generation of CX and contact center professionals through sharing the stories of those that have come up in the industry. Who doesn't love a great origin story? We want to change the narrative in contact center and customer service jobs that there is no future. So for some background on Lorne, he brings over 30 years of experience in contact center, quality assurance, and business process outsourcing. Lorne leverages deep operational experiences and no nonsense approach to fixing what tech alone can't, like leadership gaps, cultural drift, and underwhelming performance. Whether you're facing compliance headaches, attrition, or legacy QA tools that don't deliver, he helps contact center build QA programs that actually move the needle. So without further ado, Lorne, tell us how you got in the contact center space.
Well, you're never going to believe it. I never imagined that I would end up working in a call center. I thought they were probably the most miserable places that a person could ever want to work. But surprisingly, I joined one. My education was in mental health, and I got a job at a suicide hotline that served about 1.2 million people. And man, I tell you, Fred, I thought I had problems. The heartaches and the things that I heard every single night sometimes just kept me awake. And there were nights when we couldn't save them all. It was a very stressful job. And in all of that, I had to help the people who were taking those calls to not let it get under their skin, to rise above it, and to do their very best to interact with people over the phone. And so I think there were three things that I learned in that job that have never left me. First of all, there are some really great ways to interact with people over the phone. And there are also some very terrible ways. And the second thing I learned is that I actually had a knack for helping others get dramatically better at it. And the third thing I learned was I actually loved the challenge and decided that I would make a career out of it. Those were some frightful days. I felt every day when I left from work that I had somehow helped the world be a better place.
Mm.
But at the same time, I realized that this little bit of the world wasn't going to be big enough for me. And if I wanted to make this a career, I was going to have to move forward into something bigger and
Okay.
probably get out of the nonprofit world. So I went from saving lives on the crisis line to outbound telemarketing. All right.
Okay.
What a switch, right? Suddenly, as a manager, I had quotas, I had compliance rules, I had clients to keep happy, supervisors and agents to coach. And, I did a pretty good job of it. I was actually kind of surprised that I was the only manager who didn't sit in their office all day. From my crisis team experience, you had to be out in the middle of it. And I just carried that with me. So I was always out on the floor and usually had a report in my hand and was talking to the agents and the supervisors and helping them get better at what they do. It didn't take too long for them to decide that maybe I ought to be used in a bigger role. And I was really excited to be moved to Seattle and to open up a brand new 300-seat call center. Employee number one was the IT guy. I was employee number two. And we built that thing from nothing to a 300-seat call center with about 500 employees. And my leadership style had to change quite a bit. I still spent a lot of time on the floor with the agents and the soups discussing the finer points, how to capture attention and win customers over, how to answer objections. I sat down and I took calls with them. Here, let me take one, and then you take one. And I mentored supervisors on how to act and how to lead. And here's the big thing, Fred, that this is the shift in my leadership style. I stopped using people to get work done, and I started using work to get people done, right? If that makes any sense whatsoever. All right. So turning those daily tasks into opportunities to build confidence and skills, and the work itself then became the training ground, right? Because I had all these new employees who had never done this before, supervisors who had never supervised, and coordinators who had never coordinated. So I gave everybody a chance to lead. I would take good performing agents off the phone and say, I need you to floor walk for a while. And they puffed out their chest, like it was just like the most exciting thing that ever happened to them. And they would take charge and they would lead. And I would stand back and watch. They would see me watching and I would nod and give them thumbs up and stuff like that. But, put them back on their seats better than you found them, more proud and sure of themselves, right? That they could do it. I think that experience shaped me in a way where I learned that it was not just pushing papers and looking at reports, but it was building an operation. Outbound telemarketing was nothing but fun for me. It was a game. The game of tweaking the script and getting to say exactly the right words that would get the most people to say yes. And it was a craft. It was an art. But gosh, I could tell you stories of new supervisors doing whack things that you just never imagine. I'll tell you one. This very small bathroom. It was the only bathroom on the floor. And I had a supervisor who used to strip down to his underwear in the bathroom and do push-ups before we opened every day. He was a kind of a military guy, and that was his mojo. But I had to take him aside and say, you know what? You need to do your exercises someplace less public. But those are like the kind of people that I was working with. They had no sense of being professional. My next big step was from a small company to a big ass company by the name of Ticketmaster. And back in 1995, Ticketmaster was the biggest name in ticketing, but they were also, for sure, the most hated. The service fees were in the headlines. Pearl Jam from Seattle, of course, was fighting them publicly, and we heard it over the phone. Our agents took the brunt of it, but the challenge kind of hooked me. And there I was in Seattle with my 200 artsy fartsy agents that were all very creative and went to the art school, and most of them were on Pearl Jam side. And didn't mind saying that to the customers either. We had to take the approach that the headlines are the headlines. We can't change them, but we can change how people feel about it when they call us. And my mantra was, we're going to answer those complaints with great service. We're going to be professional. We're going to be positive, and we are going to be proud to work at Ticketmaster. And we will put to rest any complaint that we provide shitty service, as Pearl Jam says we do, by providing something different. And believe it or not, it created a sense of pride in the call center, and we felt ourselves pushing back against the establishment and what other people were saying about us. I built my first QA program there, first local, and then scraped my way up to national. It eventually became global. And as a director of QA and training, we eventually standardized our quality process across all the channels, and we did improve the satisfaction dramatically. I would say my takeaway in those years, as I developed even more leadership skills, was that you can only control the things you can control. You can't fix every system. You can't unpublish that article in the newspaper. You can't make Pearl Jam fans like you, but you can improve the quality of every call, and you can improve every coaching moment. I'll say a bit more about Ticketmaster while I'm here.
Yeah.
It was quite a journey for me, from being a local call center manager to finally becoming in charge of QA for the world of Ticketmaster. And it took a lot more time than I ever thought. I mean, I was so impatient, right? But I'll tell you a story. So I had written out a whole book of QA standards and how it was exactly that we were going to run our QA program. And my regional director was 100% behind it. We had this conference coming up, and he wanted me to bring copies of my QA program and give them to 3 ladies who were also contact center leaders in much bigger centers and wanted me to show them that. So I printed up 3 very nice packets and I wrote a nice little note. I waited until just the right moment to give this to them where I could have a chance to tell them what it was and all of that. So sure enough, there was a break in the meetings and I caught up with them and I said, hey, take a look at this. This is what we're doing in Seattle. It's a really great QA program. Rob asked if I might give it to you and you could take a look at it. And they were like, yeah, we could do that. So off they went with their little packets, So I went back, I collected my stuff. On my way out the door, Fred, I saw all 3 packets sitting in the wastebasket.
Oh,
All right. Later on, my boss says, well, how'd that go? I can only tell the truth. And, his response was, that's the reason that you're going to be here a lot longer than they are, which turned out to be the fact. All right.
yeah.
There's actually 2 more stories in here, Fred, if you don't mind. We were at a point where all the call centers were in the local offices in all the cities. And there was the administrative side of the office and there was the call center side of the office. And some of these places, they had gigantic doors that the agents could not cross the line, and so forth. The plan was to pull those call centers out of the local offices and consolidate them into larger national call center locations. We were putting together 3 or 4 of them, putting them into the economic development areas, which is a whole other story in and of itself. But once the call centers were no longer in the offices, then we started getting way more heat from the GMs for any kind of service failures and because it wasn't right under their nose and they couldn't just walk down the hall and so forth. So we created a contest and called it Star Search, of all things, right? Retro. And we had 7 or 8 teams that were each in the national call centers. And we had an international call center in the mix. So 8 times a quarter, we would get on a conference call and I would have GMs come onto the call as judges. And I would say to Judge Bob, okay, Bob, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, or 8. Which center shall we hear first? Center number 2. Okay. For center number 2, we have 3 calls recorded at random. You want to hear call A, B, or C? B. All right. So off we go. They'd listen to the call. Each of the 3 judges would give a score for different categories and so forth, right? So this thing just grew legs. It became popular. And when can I be a Star Search judge and all of that? The winning team got possession of the traveling trophy with their name engraved on it, a gigantic banner to hang up in their call center that they got to keep, as well as a big party to throw and so forth. It became something that changed the minds of our detractors, which were the local GMs, but also lit a fire under our own agents and supervisors because they had something that they were shooting for. And then one other story for Ticketmaster, then we'll move on. We wanted to do something to get the agents to be excited about providing even better service. So I started looking into it. Turns out that the only surveys that we were putting out were to people who had placed orders over the internet. So I got with marketing and said, we got to get in on this game. We have to know. We deduped the list and made sure that the survey frequency was right. We put out survey invites, probably got back maybe 10%. We did pretty good. But here's the trick. By the time we got into the groove of that, every site director, every manager, every supervisor, every agent, they all knew their survey score, every one of them. And we built a whole world-class service training program that drove improvement. Our CSAT scores improved by 40 points.
Wow.
Crazy stuff. If you're a new person to a call center, try this, okay? Take over the wallpaper of your agent screens, right? It's on your server. You can push out whatever image on your agent screens that you want. So every day we put out a different image on the screens. And guess what we put out there? Survey comments with agents' names, survey scores for certain agents, survey scores for certain teams, which call center was ahead all right, and had the best survey scores and which ones were in second place. But if they tried a little harder, they might just be able to do it. But there was a whole training program that went behind that as well. I give credit to all the other people in the organization, but the visibility shifted, the accountability from management to the front line, right? And it changed how agents viewed their roles. Fred, I knew that we had won. All right. The day that I walked into the break room and heard the agents arguing with each other over which ones had the highest survey scores.
Yeah. Yep.
And it wasn't about the scores anymore. It was about the pride and the motivation. And it turned into a culture driver rather than something that was used as a weapon against the agents.
Right.
So that's Ticketmaster. And, I'm very proud of the things that we got to do there. And hopefully some takeaways to your listeners for things that they could do just to inspire their teams to even better, despite what Pearl Jam may say. So Ticketmaster, we used a QA platform that was built by Hewlett Packard. And I know you're going to find this hard to believe, but I actually became that customer, the one that called them all the time and said, you need to make it do this. You need to make it do that. Why can't it do this? And eventually they finally said, shut up. Fine. Just come work for us then. So I thought, well, that sounds like fun. So I moved to Dallas and joined Hewlett Packard and was a senior product manager. And my role flipped from using QA technology to designing it.
Right.
And improving recording and analytics and scoring systems. And I think because of my operational experience, my edge was knowing what leaders and coaches and agents actually needed to do to succeed.
Yeah.
We made a lot of improvements. The work did lead to a couple of patents with my name on it, which was kind of cool.
Very cool.
And we developed a platform so that when the agent opened the monitoring form and they looked at their score for a question, it would say, here's your score, and here's your score for the last 30 days, and here's the score of your team for the last 30 days. And oh, by the way, there's a survey question about that too, and here's your score for that. All right. So it became much easier to coach agents when you had all the information in all right places. The company got bought by another company and they didn't have much interest in going much further with that product. So one of my former leaders from Ticketmaster asked me to come join him leading QA and training at one of the big three credit bureaus. What I walked into was a very outdated system. And they had one of the legacy QA products, which I shall not name, but deserves to be named, that had a phonetic transcription, which was horrible. And it never brought up all the instances where an agent actually said a certain thing. All right. And we were constantly being tagged by federal regulators that would come down on us saying, how come you didn't catch this call? And we go, well, it didn't show up on the report. That's because it was being stored phonetically and not as a speech to text transcript. So it was a bad recorder, weak transcription, poor reporting. And oddly enough, about 20% of their work was back office, but we didn't have screen capture. So we couldn't see how well they were doing. So it was like no QA on them then. It really taught me the value of screen capture, by the way. Later on down the road, that kind of did come in handy. But I would say this to anybody that was looking for a solution. Think about your back office and how it is you're going to monitor them. So you just focus on what you can control. I strengthened QA, modernized training, kept compliance high despite the techno challenges. If I were talking to someone who is new to call centers, this is what I would say. And I think this kind of, from all my experiences, but especially this one, include the back office in your QA footprint. Your QA footprint has to extend to every customer touch point, whatever it is. The other thing I guess I would say to someone new, I've never seen a problem in a call center that wasn't a problem with the leadership. And you can't automate your way out of a culture problem.
Yeah.
From the credit bureau, I went to work for Deloitte. A really great group of people to work for. And, they were smart, respectful, and I had a pretty good niche there. I managed some BPO vendors, made sure that the outsourced teams were matching what the clients were expecting. And what I really loved most about that environment was building the quality frameworks that actually worked and systems that changed behavior and improved outcomes and not just producing fluffy PowerPoints. After Deloitte, it made sense for me to build something of my own. And so I became my own consulting company and working alongside partners like Cloud Tech Gurus has kept me close to the industry, which is why you see a lot of me, Fred, because I like being close to the industry. And I love being focused on helping others stop guessing about quality and start managing with intent.
So to take us back, you fell into a center, but it was a leadership role, but
Mhm.
junior leadership. And that's where you got hooked, right?
Uh-huh.
And then
Yeah,
through multiple corporations, you ended up consulting in one of the big four, right? Then you were like, well, time to do it myself, right? Yeah.
absolutely.
Awesome. And there's all kinds of paths in here, but none of us ever predicted, hey, I'm gonna come out of school and be in call centers. Yeah. Especially back when we were doing it, it was such a niche thing. I mean, most people associated call centers to telemarketing. I
Right,
mean, when we were growing up, that's no one ever considered, a service organization as a call center.
right.
At least I hadn't ever heard of it before that way. That's an awesome journey. And I'm sure you've got a ton of stories, and we may actually get into it in the question part. Now we're just going to talk. Here's the conversational part. So let's jump in. What today keeps you up at night when it comes to contact centers in our, in our space, in our practice?
It is a trend towards the depersonalization of service
Okay.
in my mind,
Okay.
not just for customers, but for the people who deliver it. That with AI changing everything in the call center, it's automating routine work, it's writing responses, it's analyzing sentiment, and all of that has value. But I think the risk is that in our rush to make service faster and cheaper, that we may inadvertently strip out the human connection that makes it so meaningful. And I'm sure that many people that are listening to this will relate to calling companies and feeling that they were just a number and not a person, and that they didn't really get to tell their story. They didn't get to feel empathized on or told sorry to. And the irony, I think, of all that is that customers will always remember how a person made them feel and not how quickly AI handled their case. So when you take the human layer out, I think that there's a risk of losing loyalty, trust, and culture. So what keeps you up at night isn't AI itself, but I think how it could be misused. All right. If we don't protect the human role in customer service, we might just end up as centers full of data but yet without a heart and a human connection. And I applaud the companies that have taken that vision to heart and have made it their point to nurture a human connection between them and their customers.
Yeah, so let's double click on that a little bit. I don't disagree, right? I mean, you and I have had plenty of conversations, and I've spent a lot of years around machine learning and now, AI in its current
Mhm.
form. So I y- y- there's no question in my mind that we will always need human agents, right? And the question is where do we land, right? What percentage can and should be automated, which I think is your point. Not just what can, but what should is the critical piece, right?
Yeah, most definitely. AI should be used to fill the gaps to help the agent do their job even better, to come into a call fully informed and aware and knowing what to do, and even guided along the way throughout the call. It'd be the same thing as a supervisor leaning over your shoulder. All right. But in reality, the great advantage is simply the ability to summarize whole week's worth of conversations into a sentence that an executive can understand and do something about. And that is the magic of it all. If I were helping you decide upon a QA solution to buy, I would see to it that I recommended something that had AI at least to score all the calls or to dive deep into what the calls are about or to alert the agent, which agent is having some difficulty, or to tell the manager what the calls are about today. Just don't lose the human voice in it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm curious. Well, I've talked quite a bit about this. I think what we're going to see is the complexity of the calls that the agents are actually handling is going to significantly increase, which means that quality of the agent is going to have to increase, right? Quality and training are a critical piece to that, as is, well, culture always was, right? When you and I ran centers, even back before we had all these tools, it was always about, leading the people to whatever outcomes. KPIs were what came after. Do you see any different? Do you see it going the same way?
Yeah, I see it going exactly the same way. So if you were considering an update to your QA solutions, my advice would be don't go it alone. You probably don't know which vendors to consider. Leverage some expertise, perhaps an external guide, and perhaps someone with no other skin in the game except your success. Your best ROI is not staff reduction. Your best ROI is always better service. Quicker service, more efficient, first call resolution, customer sentiment, and customers running back to you because of what a great job you did. So don't fall for the solution provider's imaginary ROI that you're going to be able to afford this because you're going to need 20% less of your agents and all of that. Decide that later. Put the thing in and use it and develop it and then make that decision. But don't hang your budget on that one. And the other thing I would say about it, Fred, is don't let your QA solution become IT's baby. All right. This is the decision that determines your destiny, not theirs. I've been in situations where IT was dictating to us how the solution could be configured, how it could be run, and so forth. You be the one as the call center leader to say, these are the requirements. It doesn't matter how good of a deal or who you know. These requirements are the ones that we absolutely must get in our next solution. And we're going to go with whatever solution is going to do us the best job and not the one that fits into your infrastructure the best.
Yeah, absolutely. So for the next, I'm going to ask you to look into your crystal ball, and talk to me about 5 years from now. What do you see in the space? People, technology, what's shifted? Where do you see 5 years?
Well, I've kind of already said a little bit about that. It's not the technology itself, but hopefully how the technology is being used. AI, automation, analytics will continue to be more accurate. It will deliver deeper and deeper insights. That's certainly a given. I don't think the winners will be the companies with the most tech, though. I think it'll be the ones that leverage it to improve CX and EX. If that isn't what you get out of it, then you're wasting your money. The goal won't be to replace people. It should be to free them up to handle what only humans can do, which specifically is empathy, judgment, and people connection. And after you've attained that and you have all the bells and whistles in place, then it's time to consider the head counts. In terms of QA, we're already seeing less random sampling. Now we're up to 100% coverage for most of the interactions through AI assisted QA and not just on voice, but across all the channels. Make sure your AI goes into the back channels. I think we'll see QA teams evolving into more coaching and enablement teams, and focus less on catching mistakes because the machine's going to catch all of those, and more on improving behavior and outcomes in real time. And it's the real time thing that's going to be a difference. It won't be, this is a call that we listened to from 2 days ago, and now we're going to talk about it. It's going to be more the call that you're on right now. You need to say this and not that, or the machine's saying it to them. I think AI will also progress into the realm of really meaningful desktop process analytics. I'd like to see it provide some agent desktop guidance and some robotic process automation, because that stuff's just killer stuff and it speeds things along and helps the agent. The part that keeps me optimistic in all of this, I would say, is the best contact centers will finally start to treat EX as the heat of great CX.
Yeah.
And they'll design standards and practices that support people instead of exhausting them on both sides of the phone. So 5 years from now, the industry will have smaller headcount. It will be stronger in capability. It will be more automated, but it'll be more human where it counts.
Okay. Nice. I like the optimistic view. So since I've got you, there's a lot of people, there's always been this debate about the law of large numbers, right? When it comes to quality assurance and analyzing a percentage of total number of interactions, right? So in your mind, and you know where I'm going, because this is something, that's under the hood. Not a lot of people talk openly about this, but not everybody recommends 100% analyzation. And a lot of people say it's overkill because the law of large numbers, you won't really find anything new to learn out of the bottom. And I've heard up to 40%. Now, law of large numbers, maybe if it's an enormous center, but I think realistically, most centers, I could see that argument for 80 to that 20% differential, right? 80 to 100%. Do you have an opinion on that?
I think it depends on the industry. If you're in a regulated industry, medical, finance, insurance, you have no choice 100%, because you have a whole army of federal regulators that are watching you. And all it takes is a phone call from some customer to the CPFB or to somebody else to say, this wasn't fair, or I wasn't treated fairly. And from your side of the business, all you're going to hear is, how come you didn't find that call?
Yeah. Yeah.
So in a regulated industry, I do think you need to be able to spot on find every error or potential lawsuit or violation. The beauty of it, though, is just because you have it all doesn't necessarily mean that you need to barrage your agents with it. That would be a mistake. And it's certainly not, I think, good or fair to the agents for you to just pour through the database for all the mistakes and just lay it on them. You need to show them when they do it right and show them when they do it wrong. It needs to be balanced, but you don't need to throw every example of their mistake at them. You could show them one example, all right, or two, but you could also point out that they get it right 75% of the time. So let's figure out what's stopping you this other 25% of the time, what's
Right.
tripping you up, so that we can get you closer to that. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, absolutely. I was just curious. It's something that come up in technical conversations, right? The law of large numbers. Do we really need to run, and use tokens that much, or does it make sense to use a smaller number? The way I look at it is compute is similar to this. When you have enough power, it really doesn't matter. When the cost goes far enough down to zero, you might as well analyze 100%.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it does have a relative cost to it when you're talking about thousands of agents, a percentage, you know,
Absolutely. The benefit for the large gathering of information was toward management to be able to say, here's what's going on right now,
yeah,
what people are talking about today. And those large data sets we're built for that kind of analysis.
And modern technology is built for it as well.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
continue to improve and get better. If you were to talk to younger Lauren, or let's say some of my audience who are agents, supervisors, managers, what would you tell yourself or them knowing what you know now?
Well, of course, never give up. You know? When I first started out, I sure thought I knew a lot more than I really did.
Yeah.
So, my best advice is to come into situations asking, not telling, and learn the business before you try to fix it. It builds your own credibility to be inquisitive, not disagreeing with everything just because you don't understand it, and striving to understand. Everybody wants to jump straight into tools and dashboards and AI, but I think the best skill you can have in this industry is understanding how to motivate people and make them feel that they are worthy and capable, and how to communicate your belief that they can do what it is that you're asking them to do. And that fits together with processes and a sense of purpose. I would encourage someone coming in to spend a lot of time, of course, with QA and training, right? To learn what that's all about. Spend time with agents, spend time with workforce management, listen to calls, sit with supervisors, but really get it in your head what good sounds like. And work with other people around you to come to that kind of understanding. There's a dozen books I could tell you to go read that would be very helpful. But I guess maybe finally, I would say don't lose sight of the human side of the work, right? That some of the best leaders I've ever known weren't necessarily the smartest, but they were the ones who cared enough to take the time to teach, to coach, and to help people succeed. And I guess that's probably the thing that I would say to anyone coming in new, all right, into this. Your success as a leader is the success of your people.
Yeah.
Straight up. All right. Your job as an up and coming leader is to help those people be the best versions of themselves in the production that they can possibly be. And quite honestly, so many times I found this to be true, that what you see in a person and what you tell them about themselves will inevitably come to be.
Mm, I like it. All right. Yeah, it's been a pleasure, Lauren. I appreciate you. Thank you for joining us, sharing your journey. I'm sure it'll inspire some folks out there. And, great stories, man. And as always, for those people watching, we appreciate you and taking your time. I know this is long format, but we enjoy having these conversations, and I hope you enjoyed it as well.
Yeah,
Thanks
what a
again.
blast. Thank you for bringing me on, Fred. I really enjoyed the time.
Absolutely, man. I appreciate it. We'll talk to you soon.